I will say thank you for the invitation. Then I want to say that we feel at home, since this exhibition is talking about what we are studying, a little part of it. So the exhibition is bigger, talking about many fields related to this topic. But yeah, it's a few years that we are working on this. We are working on this, and then we are happy to find a place that talk about all these things. Then I'm going to introduce a selection of 3 projects, and first of all, just a little introduction of who we are. We are Studio GISTO. We are a studio that works in doing design, architecture, and craftsmanship. What we think it's interesting, or what we like, is to work to try to keep at the same level the project and the production in a way, so the what it's coming from our mind and from our hands has the same importance. So the time we spend in the studio and that we have in Milan is more or less the same time that we spend in our workshop or around where we are working on site, let's say. So we give importance also to the production, and then we try to, as when we can, and if projects have a certain scale, we try to keep the whole to work on the whole process from the idea to the realization. We do, of course, we have many collaborators. We do not do all by ourselves, but we try to keep control. It's not that we do the project and we deliver, but we try to keep also the production part in order to do what we think is interesting. So we can do, how can I say, we can go on a different level if we control also the production. Okay, so the project we are presenting is, let's say, the 4th step of a 3 previous project that talks about transformation in design. And they are all projects that, in a different scale, they deal with what we can call applied circular economy in a way. So they are all attempts to see a place as a resource, and then to try to see a place as a transformative, or our project not as a starting point, but as a transformative process in which we start from what is there, and then we see what we can do through a kind of a transformative action. So there are 3 projects that we are talking about. First, so there are 3 different projects. The first is a workshop that started with all this crew, from a Biennale in Utrecht in 2014. It's a workshop we developed. It was curated by Joseph. And then it was an interesting workshop because in the end we had the possibility to stay in a building which was going to be demolished. And we participated to this workshop, creating a part of an exhibition inside the building before the demolition. Then the second is called Fab Lab. And then it's a project that I'm going to explain to you better later, that's related to the same topic, but in an industrial area, so an industrial area as a source. And then the next one is the Multiplo, that we also gave the book that is a project on a bigger scale that driven us also to enact this next project. So try to be fast and efficient. So this is the workshop, Broad School Demolition. And then, yeah, so the workshop was part of a bigger program, and then it was in the end an exhibition inside this building. We participated to the workshop, creating, let's say, an object like the entrance stairs of the exhibition place, which was at the first floor. And then, yeah, it was a great experience. There were a lot of people and students and other studios. And yeah, so what we did basically is to use the place as a resource for getting the material, and then we took some part of this bicycle shelter, and by more or less a week of workshop, we created like these entrance stairs that allow like the visitors to go to the first floor. So this is like I think it's the beginning of what we are, of everything in a way, let's say, of this theory applied in a way. Okay, so this is another project. I'm going fast in these in this first project because so we have more time to talk about Frantoio Sociale. And this is another project that talk about the same topic. So having an area as a source, but in this case the scale was bigger. So our source was an industrial area. Let's say this project is on Castelfranco Veneto, which is nearby here, Treviso, and then it was in 2015. What is interesting about this place, but like many other places, at least in North Italy, is that industrial areas are big as the urban, let's say, the industrial zone is big as the urban zone in a way. So it's quite a big volume and surface of buildings. So what was happening in there, but it's more or less 10 years that was happening, this change in this shift, is that there was a transformation from the inside of all the workshops, all the industries. So due to technological issue, due to moving of production outside, there was, let's say that from the outside, everything was more or less the same, but from the inside, it was completely changing in all these years. So what we found out is that this transformation has a kind of a gray area. So which is the gray area? There is this change in the industrial area. So the building goes in the market, so they resell the buildings. The machine, the tools has a market, and then you can resell the tools. There is their website that work on it, but there was a kind of a gray area of machines which were too old or too big to be transported. That was somehow useless, and nobody was caring about it. So we went around and we found few of these big machinery, and then they have been our starting point in a way. So we could get like industrial machinery, which has a scale that can reach, let's say, the scale of architecture. They were a machine like 4 meters by 6, like over designed in a way that they were structurally super and structurally safe. So in a way, let's say that we took the industrial area as a source, and then this source, after a series of projects first of design and then of adapting, it became so we used the industrial area as a source. Okay, there was this transformation, then we could get all this material for free. So we could invest all the budget for people helping us in transform and getting and mapping all these materials. So it's interesting because in a way the impact was, so they say the budget was the same. We didn't invest in materials, but in people in the area helping us. So it was an interesting process in the way that driven us to the next project that came thanks to this. This is the interior design of the Fab Lab. And then we just did just a few things, and then all what we found around became, this is the structure, these are the fences that we used up there, and so this is the final result. Okay, thanks to this, we went to a next project that's called Multiplo, and then it's a project that was quite big for us. It took 2 years, not of course continuously, but little by little. It's a kind of a 2-year process of project that went from the idea to the realization of a series of prototypes. So in this project, we also tried to set kind of a structure to act inside these environments. So we tried to divide the structure, and I'm going to explain a little bit better in the presentation, but in the mapping, material archive, design project, laboratory, on-site, and then the development of the object. So The project started from an army base, which have been created in between the First and the Second World War. The army base is in South Tyrol, Silandro. It's close to Milano, like the border between Italy and Austria. So it was quite a big base. It was designed to host 3,000 soldiers. So a massive building. And then we have been invited to design the interior design of the only building which will stay up. Because the idea, and then it's already reality in a few months, I think, or the next year, is that all this volume is going to be demolished, and then these become the only element that remain. And then, yeah, so it will be the only part that will stay. And all the rest is it's going to be transformed in apartments. Okay, so of course there is it's nice because it's a project that is it's interesting because it's a project that is part of a European funding, and then these European funding have been developed, and then there is a group of young guys. They are around, I think, 35 that fight to get this European funding, and then with this funding they could save the building. So it's a kind of a young generation that try to keep what they think is important for their city, for the place in which they live. So this is the army base. Yeah, so we already said that this is so we wanted to kind of merge architecture, design, ecology, and economy. So economy, why? Because we wanted to do this action, and which has an ecological, let's say, footprint, but also to be economically sustainable. And then this is so the first step is mapping. What means that we go around, we map in an Excel and map. So we map, let's say, on the map what's around, and then as a resources, and at the same time also resources for collaborating. So let's say that we try to understand what was available from the building that became our main source, our mind, we could say. So as a material point of view, but also as a communities, and then realities that could collaborate with us. So we did a mapping of these realities of materials, and we did a kind of a first archive and list. Then next step, we started to build an archive, and then this archive is interesting because it's needed for us. So we needed to start prototyping, and then develop the first object that were needed to get the job in a way. So to go on with the process, because it was not easy, of course, to convince the clients to, because those projects are not really, so it is difficult to say what's going on in the end. So there is a kind of a prototyping phase, which is a bit more than project, because we have to see if it works, and then to find out the easiest way to transform this element. Otherwise, it becomes not sustainable from the economical point of view. Okay, then we started to talk about a series of topics with our clients. So what means value? Can we consider value as a capacity of a material to resist over time? So aluminium frame, if we store inside a building, and then if it's well preserved, it can survive for 600,000 years. If it's not outside and it's under the rain and so on. So can we consider the capacity of a material to resist over time a value? So a simple example, Parthenon in Acropolis. So it's an important building because it tells about the history of Greece. But the important thing is that it is still there. So in the sense, the material is the value of this building, and then since it's still there after few thousand years, we can consider that at that capacity of a resist over time is the real value in a way of this building. So can we change the value scale or work on this and then try to understand what means value for materials? Also wood, I don't know, Notre Dame de Paris, the roof was 400 years old in wood. So also wood is a material that can have a value in terms of capacity of resist over time. And plastic too, yeah, plastic even, it's super resistant that we cannot, I don't know, so we will find plastic for a few more 100 years around our Earth, since it's too resistant. So, logistic, can we consider logistic as a value? So, this is the only building that will remain, and all this is going to be demolished. What means? It means that a series of trucks, a few thousand, brings materials out of this construction site, and then they move somewhere, so to disposal site. Then a few other thousand bring new material, and then they move inside this construction site. So this is a cost, but it not just economically, like fuel, but it's a cost for environment. So can we consider this in a scale, so in a new kind of a value scale as a topic, even just a topic? Then also architecture as a value. In a way, this project started because of the architecture. Since this building is a rational building, so it's a kind of a module that repeats itself. So our idea was that in this special case, but it happened in many other, every element can be treated as a kind of an industrial scale, with an industrial scale thinking, because we do not have one window, windows, but we have 200, which are all the same. We do not have few square meter of tiles, but you have few thousand square meter of tiles. So these are volumes in which you can start a kind of an industrial scale production and then being sustainable and maybe also competitive with other realities, just produce tiles or produce whatever. So it's a kind of a thinking applied to the site. And then, we started to prototype, and then we started to show to the mayor and to the association that it was possible. These are the first prototypes. Little exhibition proving that they are safe with the mayor. And then the transformation. So what is interesting from our point of view is that a demolition site is a laboratory which is devoted to destruction in a way. So there are a series of men and tools that are there, and then their focus is to destroy. But it's not really different from the construction site. Of course, few machines change, but if you adapt a few things, the demolition site can become a transformative, side. So it's not just the end, but it can be at the beginning of what's come next. So this is the part of the laboratory. We set it up. And then, in the end, we built a series of prototypes, starting from what was there, then which are described in this book. That's, so in a way, we built the prototype per type, and then, try to apply this idea of seeing a construction site as money in a way. Then what we did to share this project also is to build a manual inside this book that is a mixture between a tutorial YouTube, IKEA manual, and Insomari that explain how to get material out from this building and then to create your own furniture in a way. Okay, this is the manual. So, so all this to introduce the next topic, which is inertia. So we started to go around, to walk around this place, and then we found a lot of this rubber. Yeah. So we said, why not to start to divide it and then to make something else? And then we went to this project. So to the next step, which calls Yeah. Next step is inerti, which is just a research that driven us to this project, which we are going to present here today, which goes Frantoio Sociale. So, in a way, in inerti, so the previous project is a kind of a transformative process in which you bring elements and then you transform their. So it's a kind of a ready-made, we can say. So we take something and then it becomes something else, if you see in a different way. But in this case, what we are trying to do with inerti is to see the potential of demolition as a design field of action. So demolition becomes a source, so it becomes the beginning of everything. So we started to collect a series of projects that talks about this topic. This is the beginning. So it talks about demolition. Okay. No, we don't use the sound. Okay, cool. Yeah. So the idea is that demolition is the beginning of a project. So it's a design process. It's part of the design. So we started to collect a series of data and also of projects that deal with the topic of demolition and waste as a start. I mean, the topic is that between art, design, and architecture. Then in the meanwhile, together with Hund Studio, which are here, we tried to go through the data of what demolition is. Okay, so thanks to this research, we're trying to go deep into what construction waste means. Then we found all this data that, thanks to Hund Studio, we transform it into something that you can read. So what is interesting is that construction and demolition are the 35% in the European scale of all the volume of waste that travels around Europe, let's say, which is, so it can be considered as a new material in a way for this project. Here we have some more data, geolocalized, and I mean through nation. Then you can see the volume. This is million tons, the diameter, and then inside here is tons per capita per person. So yeah, I don't go through this. Maybe to the workshop we try to go deep, also with the studio. But yeah, what is interesting is that there are some problems related with our, let's say, way of living. These problems is also deal with circular economy and waste. And then in terms of volume, construction waste is a serious topic. Of course, it's not under the light like as plastic waste, but let's say that the volume, every demolition is a tracks. So tracks that moves from one side to another side. And then it's a serious topic. Okay, here we have some more data that we can go through. Here, rate of recovery of construction, and we will go through the workshop. Here's the percentage of recycling. That of course it's a big percentage, but even if we get a little part of this, it's a series of tons of something, of material. Yeah, so we started to go deep into this data. These are some disposal sites. So they're not mine, but they were earth, piece of earth in which they started to collect materials, which are quite big. And they are, of course, all around Italy and Europe and the world, of course. So we started, then we go to the topic of this workshop that goes Frantoio Sociale. So our idea is this, and then this is a prototyping, we can say. We try to prototype it here and at V-A-C. So the topic of reusing construction waste is not it's not a technical problem, because this issue exists since Roman Empire. Coccio pesto is a series of material made out of coccio. Pavimento alla veneziana is leftover from marble that mix together, they do a nice floor. Okay, so it's not a technical issue, but it's a kind of a cultural one. So we want to try to work on this cultural issue. How? Starting from some example that try to break the logic, the vertical logic of demolition. So demolition now is led by companies that get the material, they get the material from the construction site, and then they drive into the disposal site. So our idea is to try to break it, and then inspiring by a series of agricultural practice that are horizontal in a way. What's in Italy we call cantina sociale or Frantoio. So there are places in which people with their own material meet, they get the job done, even if they are small, and then they contribute in a way to a bigger project, which is the wine, the territory in a way, in that case. So, and then it's not just a place in which you can get your things done, but it's also a place for meet other people. It's a social gathering in a way. So here are some images. So our idea is to start from this and then try to apply this to demolition. So transform demolition in a social practice in which people meet, and then together they get their own material, and yeah, so and then they can get something back, or maybe they exchange material with others. So trying to apply this logic into the demolition topic. So yeah, this is the structure of the workshop, is the axonometry. What we are going to do is to rent this machine that we are going to see later in the video how it works, and then to, first of all, to collect some material all around Venice. Means like from Mestre Marghera to Lido. So what we can see as a source, and then it's interesting, I think, if each of you develop a project in the project, as I already said. So we have this machine, we can create some powder, and then we can filter it. So we can create color, we can create materials, and we can create something that maybe is useful also for other workshops, or for people that maybe need it for their home. I don't know. Maybe, so our idea is also to invite some guests to bring some materials. And okay, so to see the potential of material divided by colors in a way we can see, or divided by diameters of sands, diameter, and so on. And yeah, so here is the idea that the structure of the workshop is to have guests, visitors, and companies, but also we as a source. Then get the raw material, set up the Frantoio Sociale in these days, and then place some would be exhibition, some we archive, and then maybe somebody can also bring home something. And we wanted to do also some little souvenir, but we'll see later if we can do. Yeah, I mean, we set it in this week. We see how to proceed. And what is interesting is also that Studio Hund developed an app that we are going to test here. That the idea is that in this next days we will go around to get materials, and then with this app you can geolocalize and then focus on the material, and then we can get the color you can have from the powder of this material. So it's a kind of an atlas of material, which will have also some data. I mean, there is a kind of a sheet in which you have to form and then write all the data about that material. Yeah, but what is interesting is that we have a map and an atlas of material based on the position. So here is the first chapter, and we will have an atlas, and then the next step maybe some other experience. We can have an atlas of another place. So it's a research about territorial data. Here is how the app is working, but we will see later. And then here is the video about the. We cannot have the sound, right? No, can we switch on the sound just for this? Oh. Okay, super. Here is the crunchy machine, which is the heart of the workshop.
Look me in the eye, I'm taking slow. Never running high when I got down low. I can go for miles, water lets me go. Mama, if you feeling like you fly, man, damn. Slowly getting lost when you do not care. Sing it to the stars as you pull my hair. But you forget about your love, bud. I'ma want this out to make you feel good. Trouble in your body as a prelude. But you forget about your love, bud. I'ma want this out to make you feel good. Let me taste your body like it's soul food. The tide is high. You don't need to tell me nothing, girl, just turn up the light. I might need a regulator when I go for the ride. The desire made you switch to your most primitive mind. No sin, no sin. Call it meditation when we both level.
Then we are going to get it here in a few days, I think 1 or 2 days. And yeah, that's it. Okay, I think we're done. Now you have some question, but so yeah, so let's say the whole introduction was just to explain you how we get here. Then this is our next topic, and then let's share it and work on it.
How do you go about identifying the waste sources in a particular area? Is this just through social connections or asking around?
Yeah, I think we can decide it together later. So the first idea was to apply in the 6 degrees theory. That you always connected with somebody else, and then so let's try to find the right strategy. It can be territorial based, so in the sense that we know some company. So maybe if we mix together all the connection we have and then the interest also we have, I think we can we see together. So our idea was to somehow be territorial based because it makes sense also for this project. So since we talk about non-extractivism, it would be nice to see, maybe to find out somewhere that not people do not even think as a solution or as a source, but show the potential of this material as a source. So let's go through territorial and then whatever you think is interesting. And also maybe inviting somebody that we know. I will invite this evening lots of people bringing material from the area, let's say, or maybe also from the outside. I don't know. But yeah, so I think it's nice if we have somebody also maybe they're working on their house, and then we crash some material for them. And also, of course, yeah, we were talking about going to Murano and get some glass, because we can break glass, marble, concrete, and seashell, and stones, and all what can be destroyed.
There are two companies just over there, big construction companies. They also have waste materials, and also there is nothing inside, just of course the bridge, so we can also ask them. We already have some windows and spare room, and maybe they have also other things.
Super. Yeah. So yeah, in a way, construction site become our mind, our source. And then I know that there is a disposal here somewhere. So some material from the building.
The storage.
Yeah, and the storage.
Yeah, and the storage is in the same direction.
So maybe
go to storage and then go to the.
So maybe the starting point can be the building itself. Well, of course, what is not needed and not the building, like the nice part. Okay. Other question. I think it was all clear. So we would like also to keep it fun in a way. So we have a week, try to develop your project, and then, but let's try to keep this social aspect exchange.
It's
in a way, one of the most interesting things I think is about the word Frantoio, which maybe it's good to explain a bit more what the Frantoio, because one who's not Italian, maybe doesn't understand, because it's not just about the idea of the material production, but the Frantoio is also very social.
Frantoio is usually known as the place in which you make oil, in a way. You press your oil. So it's a word that in the end it's not just for oil. It means it's come from frantumare. So you grind in a way things, but it became social because the place. So the Frantoio in which you produce oil, which is made by stone, is a machine that's kind of archaic technology in which you press olives and you get your oil. And then, the name of the tool became the name of the place. So the Frantoio is a place in which a small business from agriculture, but even privates can go there and then contribute to the oil of the Frantoio that is later going to be sold. So it became, so we did a mixture between Frantoio and Cantina Sociale, because also Cantina Sociale is the place in which you get your own grapes and you contribute to the territorial wine production in a way. And then the same thing is, so everything started to try to play with these words. But in the end, we found out that Frantoio has this social aspect, and then it's linked to olive oil. But the real meaning means frantumare in a way. That's really on the topic of what we are going to do. So there are places in which people meet, and then they are part of a collective process. This is so it's nice if this is a kind of a prototype of a place in which people, let's say that it can be a prototype of a next generation of a disposal area in which there is also a social bar in which you together with others contribute to the material, the new material of the area, which is coming from what the territory gives.
Did you think it was all about that sort of urban dimension of what could be the design of a new type of typically in Italy they're called isole ecologiche. You take the trash and it gets sort of separated, and then in fact I was driving through where was it? When we went to pick up my wallet, remember we saw this very beautiful invento. They have some really nice isole ecologiche with trash collecting areas with a kind of a canopy, and underneath the ground when you drive out, like really beautifully designed. It's also really good part of the urban. You can imagine, I saw it kind of look like a temple of the city. And it shows what it opened, and also the one where I usually go in Sisi, which is it's not very nicely designed. It's between a dog rescue place and some light industry or something. It has this incredible view of Sisi. And it's really this kind of social space where people, especially during lockdown, like I found myself in CC clearing up and fixing, like everybody, taking advantage of them to fix up the house. And the only place you'd meet anybody was at the isole ecologiche. And you could really imagine how because there's something kind of, it's typically situated with a sort of a scatological imaginary of something that's to be kept out of sight and to not really think about it because it's trash and it's dirty and it's unclean, and how that could be brought back into the center of the city to become a collective sort of ritual, like the way that the olives are. Because it's really like in Italy, it's one of the countryside of Italy, one of you take your olives to be pressed, and everybody gathers there and put their olives in, and then the fresh oil comes out and you taste it with a biscuit and so on. It's an incredible moment. And if that could be somehow replicated in this moment of contributing trash, it's a complete inversion of creation and destruction, clean instead of dirty, building instead of destroying. It would be really amazing.
That's why we went into the cultural aspect, because technically it's not a problem at all, but it needs to be perceived as something else. So if we work on a cultural level, and then we start to say, let's get this material together, and then let's make something out of it, and then maybe to see this place, to maybe to imagine a disposal like this Isola Ecologica, or maybe something else, I don't know, as a place in which applies some kind of a transformative process. I mean, what means circular economy? This can be a possible vision of what circular economy is, in a way, applied and then running in different places. I mean, every territory is a kind of a production place, and then is a resource.
I think that in that sense also, like during this week, it will be really interesting to reflect not just on the material and on the kind of source and how it links back into the demolition and so on, but also how it can operate at another level. What's the sort of, urbanistically speaking, how does this become part of the city, and what sort of, are its lines that connect it to social life within the city. So I think when you solve that, then everything, I mean, it's not a very sophisticated machine. It's not something like the latest 3D printer or something. It's like actually quite mundane. But in a way, I think that what's much more interesting I think the most interesting thing about I think the genius of the project is the Frantoio. That the use of the word and kind of positioning it as something that is celebratory and really kind of an alive part of the city. So I think that would be a really important thing for us to
and also talking about the economical aspect, let's think that the issue of waste for some productive area, it's an economical issue. So it's a problem. This is a problem for a group of companies that work, I don't know, with something. So if there is a distretto, they produce something, they have to this waste, and then they don't know what to do. And then I think it's interesting also strategically to think of this as a place in which you also solve some problems but you transform it into something that's needed for other opportunities.
And I think also like thinking on the level of economics, macroeconomics of waste, there's all the carbon offsets and credits, and there's also an aspect that's quite, and there's also international. We did this with the design academy, this series of exhibitions called Geodesign. One of them was specifically about junk, and it was looking at the junk as a form of currency as well, something that has actually underpins a significant amount of the economy. And so also then thinking about what are the ways in which that the kind of the byproduct of a consumer-based, consumption-oriented society, which produces this waste, how can we kind of reduce or somehow reformulate this idea of consumption, rather starting from the waste, and starting from systems of disincentivization for production. It's also not just how do we handle waste as the end, but how do we also treat it? And how do we avoid creating it in the first place? Because I think sort of the sort of one of the biggest problems is the tendency to reduce this progressive reduction of value of resources, where it starts out as something that's kind of very I don't know, something kind of with infinite possibilities like clay, or like marble, or like metal, or ore, or anything. And then gradually, throughout a relatively short period of time, that's reduced, maybe not directly, but through a series of steps to what is basically useless material. I mean, this rubble, of course, if you think about how to 3D print it and so on, but its use value has fundamentally been reduced. So I think this is super interesting also to think of it as a last resort, but maybe before we get to that, it's also important.
To understand the value of what we are talking about.
Which was what your other projects were about.
Sure. But that's it. It's a big topic, and then there are many fields, but also many things that needs to be understood in a way and then developed. But yeah, this for sure is which is the value of this material.
You don't want to be somehow misunderstood as encouraging the production.
No, no, because this is a topic because I know also the company that work with Coccio Pesto, they do not have the Coccio anymore, so they have to produce Coccio and then to break and then produce Coccio Pesto. Yeah, no, we do not want to go into. Now let's say that if we think that this last 100 years have been years overproduction. If we just keep this material as a source, we can go on, I think, for a few 100 years more. I mean, concrete and then what? So even if the project has a kind of a 30 years lifespan in which we synthesize all what's around here, I think it's also, I mean, an issue. So of course we need to first think of an alternative production method, and then in the same time to try to use what's already have been extracted, and then use it as a precious material. Yeah, talking about value. So which is the value of this? Right now it's zero. So all the material from construction waste, since it's mixed, it's material that has no value. So it goes under highways and in kind of infrastructure base for big construction, ports and so on. So, but if it is selected before becoming trash, that you can give a value. So you divide marble from concrete, you divide I don't know, glass from something else. So maybe it becomes powder, or maybe it becomes something else before the destruction. Of course, this, I mean, this was to go deep into the topic of trying. It's a kind of a symbolical aspect of get to a new powder in a way.
Did you find any examples of this happening already? Like, is it any case studies?
There are some. Yeah, we find a lot of case studies. What is interesting? Many. For example, a huge case study applied in the territory is Le Havre in France. That was completely bombed in the Second World War, and then they used all the materials to produce the new cement for the new town. In fact, the town has a cement which is kind of a pink, like skin color, because it has bricks, percentage of bricks. It's Le Havre is the project from I think, yeah. So it became a place. So they say, yeah, in Milan we have Monte Stella, which is a hill with the, but in that case it's interesting because it became that place became a source. And then, in fact, if you see the picture, the concrete is kind of a gray, but with a few part of bricks, and then it's quite interesting. Yeah, there are many projects that deal with this topic. But again, that was a special thing. So they had that much that it was a big problem. It's interesting to, yeah, as you say, see in an urban scale, and also how to apply it into a not just a special occasion, but in a system, in the system in which we live anyway.
I think it's very interesting because I think since we are always speaking about the scene, but to overcome this, we are always thinking about the natural material, like to come back to that. Since it's really an area that the anthropocene, maybe we have to start thinking about what we produce until now as a material, as a new landscape that you can use. So that way, using what was a building and the structures that you can think about it as a mountain or like that. Yeah. So if you're trying to overcome the problem, continue keep thinking about building and not rearranging what we have. We cannot really go through the problem. I think it's really interesting this day to think about buildings as material.
Yeah. let's say that is a product between the old world and the new world. We are in between the two worlds and then trying to shift to the new one. Okay. Other topics. If you want, we can just sit around the table and then we have prepared a map, and that we are going to print, and then we see how to organize everything.
You can also print it with a tool in different A3, and each of us can have one A3.
Yeah. I think they are really prepared. Okay, do you have to say something?
No, we're all good.
Ciao. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.